All right, and welcome to this special series of Real Estate Fight Club. Now, this series is called What Would You Do? And it airs every Wednesday. We discuss ethics and professional standards committee cases and scenarios. And joining me today on this episode is Jim Camarata. Hey, Jim.
Hey, how you doing, Jennifer?
Great. And Jim's from Keller Williams out of Minneapolis, right?
Right, correct.
Excellent. All right, Jim, what case do you have for us today?
Well, we've got an interesting case, and it's right out of the NAR playbook. So, want me to read it first? Then
Let's hear it.
All righty. So, as the exclusive agent of client A, Realtor B offered client A's house for sale, advertising it as being located near a bus stop. Prospect C, who explained that his daily routine made it necessary for him to have a house near the bus stop, was shown client A's property, liked it, and made an offer. 2 days later, Realtor B read a notice that the bus line running near client A's house was being discontinued.
Oh,
He informed Prospect C of this, and Prospect C responded that he was no longer interested in client A's house since the availability of bus transportation was essential to him. Realtor B informed client A and recommended that Prospect C's deposit be returned. Client A reluctantly complied with Realtor B's recommendation, but then complained to the Board of Realtors that Realtor B had not faithfully protected and promoted his interests. That Prospect C had expressed his willingness to buy, Realtor B should not have made a disclosure that killed the sale, since the point actually was not of major importance. The new bus route he showed would put a stop within 6 blocks of the property. In a meeting before a hearing panel of the board's professional standards committee, Realtor B explained that in advertising client A's property, the fact that a bus stop was less than a block from the property had been prominently featured. He also made the point that Prospect C, in consulting with him, had emphasized that Prospect C's physical disability necessitated a home near a bus stop. Thus, in his judgment, the change in bus routing materially changed the characteristics of the property in the eyes of the prospective buyer, and he felt under his obligation to give honest treatment to all parties in the transaction that he should inform Prospect C, and that in doing so, he was not violating his obligation to his client. I'll stop there.
That's a good one. So what's the code that they were citing in that?
Code Article 1.
Okay, can you read that?
Article 1, when representing a buyer, seller, landlord, tenant, or other client as an agent, realtors pledge themselves to protect and promote the interests of their client. This obligation to the client is primary, but it does not relieve realtors of their obligation to treat all parties honestly. When serving a buyer, seller, landlord, tenant, or other party in a non-agency capacity, realtors remain obligated to treat all parties honestly.
So the seller was complaining that his agent didn't represent him by disclosing that the bus stop was no longer going to be 1 block, it was going to be like 6 blocks or whatever. I mean, 6 blocks is pretty significant. In a city block, I mean, that's like over a mile. It's like a mile and a half.
It's a good distance, and if you have a physical disability, as this prospect does,
right?
That's.
But at the same time, like I can understand the seller's like frustration, because maybe for them it's like, well, it's not a big deal. But I can see, like, if the buyer is buying it because of the location of the bus stop, then it is a big deal. But like, what if this would have happened like the day before closing? You know what I mean? Like,
I know. It gets really hairy. And as the broker in my office, my job is to keep my fellow agents out of realtor jail.
Luckily, there's no real realtor jail.
They don't know that.
It's like this made up tent city in Arizona. No, okay.
I've got them all upset. Oh, Jim, I don't want to go to realtor jail.
I mean, I'm curious, like, I don't know. We did a podcast on how much did you know about the house that you're listing? And like this knowledge seems like a lot. Like I wouldn't know that stuff about anything I was listing, I don't think. Like how would they even know? You know what I mean?
And that's where it really gets tricky. But the
Yeah.
fact that his agent found that out through some sort of article or in the newspaper or
Right. Like
something.
somehow there was knowledge of it. And then, yeah. And they knew I would say, like, if I knew that that was the main reason that the buyer was buying the house, right? Then I would probably tell my seller, look, this is not going to go over well. Like, there's going to be a problem here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there are some some clients that don't want their agents to disclose material facts. Oh, you don't need to tell them that.
Well, you do. You
Uh,
should.
I cringe. My whole body just tenses up, and I just say, "Nope, sorry about that. We are held to a higher standard of performance and ethics." And
Well, and
what
wouldn't they want to know?
you told me, I've got to disclose that. If I
Right.
find out and it's a material fact, I have to disclose that. And
Right.
you can't hide that.
Right.
Sorry.
And what else are you hiding?
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, like I understand the seller's need to want to sell the house, right? And this is why we should we've had conversations before too about like marking it pending right as soon as it becomes under contract, because you do have this whole thing of like, well, what if that buyer doesn't close, right? And here's like a perfect example. There's nothing wrong with the house, but yet when the house goes back on the market, there's going to be this stigma potentially of like, well, why'd the house go back on the market? And even when the realtor explains, look, it was a bus stop issue, most buyers are going to be like, yeah, right. You know what I mean? Like, okay. Or like it was a, financing issue. Yeah, right. And now the seller is screwed.
Yeah. And I never knew that interstate was behind us.
Right.
Duh.
Right. I didn't know there was a giant tower. So I don't know. I feel like based on what you told me, it doesn't, and based on like what I'm hearing, it doesn't seem like the agent was in violation. What do you think?
You want
I
the answer?
mean, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I do. I do. But weren't you saying you thought it was something else too? Could be something else.
Yeah. We get down to I think it was the client used the word a material fact. In his mind,
That was
the
not
bus stop
material.
was not a material fact. And yet, when you look at Article 2, which is real clear about it, realtors shall avoid exaggeration, misrepresentation, or concealment of pertinent facts relating to the property or the transaction. By golly, we have knowledge. We have to disclose that.
But to the seller's point, is if it were, I agree. Like I think that material could be a distance issue. Maybe. I mean, I would argue that if I was the seller or the agent. So if it's one more block or if it's like close by, I don't know that it's material. In my head, 6 blocks seems very material because that's a large distance. But where does it become large and not large? You know what I mean? And that is what I don't know. I mean, we'd obviously have to ask an attorney, and maybe there'd be 400 opinions if we asked 400 attorneys.
And you would.
Yeah. But like, do you think that material, how would you like justify that in your mind?
Yeah, it's information that I now have that possibly alter or affect my decision to buy or not buy. So it's information that is key to me and to my decision-making process.
Yeah.
So as this person who is a handicapped person, oh my gosh, going from 1 block to 6 blocks, I can't handle that.
But even how you're saying, it wouldn't even matter if it was going from one side of the street to the other. It still could potentially be material to the person that's buying it.
Yeah, the house that I just put on the market this morning received a notice from the city of a $10,000 street improvement assessment.
Oh.
It's got to be disclosed.
Well, sure, that does.
It's got to be close. And, people were
Yeah.
asking about it and, what does it entail? Is it, you want more information? I loaded it up onto the supplements.
Yeah.
Call the city. You
Right.
want more
Call them.
information?
Yeah. I'm not the
Here's
city.
the
I don't
letter,
know.
but call the city,
But you
please.
also have you have some buyers that have this remorse, right? Because it takes so long for us to close, which is like a whole nother soapbox that I'll spare you, Jim. But like, okay, what if the bus stop moved from the middle of the block to the end of the block, right? Like literally, maybe we'll call it, I mean, it's probably more than 10 steps, but like that potentially could be material. But then you have some people that'll just want to get out of a contract just to get out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I
That's
think,
remorse.
huh?
That's buyer's remorse.
I know. And that sucks because now from the seller's side, you're screwed again, you know?
Yeah. And in our state, we have, a couple of different ways in which a buyer could get out of a contract. One is during the home inspection time period.
Okay.
And the second is during the review period of the HOA docs or condo docs.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
period, statutory law. And if they don't like what they see for whatever reason,
There can be out. But this
they
is
can be out.
like, yeah. So like if I'm at one, oh, we lost you. You can't see you.
And somebody trying to,
They're trying to call you. Don't they know we're busy? No, but I mean, there you are. So I think, I mean, if I'm as a listing agent, I like to have backup offers, no matter what market we're in, because anything can happen, anything can change, and I know that when it goes from active to pending to back to active, and if it's going to do that, I usually will cancel it and relist it, because there is a stigma, and that's what do you do? Because you know that it exists. And even if you tell the agents the real story, they don't believe you. The buyers don't believe you.
yeah. And fortunately, in this particular case, it was 3 days. So there was hardly
Oh, well,
any
that's
time
not
lost.
that bad. Yeah. But what if it was, 25 days?
Yeah, if it's past the inspection time period and there's no HOA a review period, I'd have to
But
say,
because,
this buyer, you better seek legal counsel.
okay, but because because it was a material fact, is that why they were allowed, let's say it was past those days, but a material fact changed. Does that allow them to get the earnest money back, the buyers?
Part of it, well, let me read it to you.
Okay.
The panel concluded that Realtor B had not violated Article 1,
Okay.
but had acted properly under both the spirit and the letter of the Code of Ethics. The panel noted that the decision to refund Prospect C's deposit was made by the seller, client A, even though the listing broker, Realtor B, had suggested it, that it was only fair due to the change in circumstances. But it was the client's decision
To
that,
sign
in
it or
the
not.
panel's opinion, weighed heavier and said, okay, that wasn't the agent not being loyal. All he did was suggest it. It was the client's decision to refund it.
Yeah.
That's where these panel discussions and reviews get really hairy.
Yeah.
The longest one I've been involved in is 6 hours.
Whoa.
Did we freeze up?
You just a bit, but I could hear you. So it was 6 hours. That's a long time.
Are you there? Okay. Can you hear?
So you said the longest was 6 hours?
Yeah, the longest ethics hearing that I've ever sat through was 6 hours.
That's so long.
It was painful. It was just painful. Got a free lunch out of it, but it was painful.
That's not, no, thanks. Well, that was a really good case, very thought-provoking. I appreciate you bringing that to us. And if people have a referral for you in Minneapolis, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. I respond to all different media. My direct phone number is 612-562-7461. My email is first and last name, Jim Camarata, and that's Camarata. It's a lot of A's, at kw.com. And I've also got a wonderful website, Camarata Numeric. Numeric is my daughter-in-law, camarata.com. So a lot of different ways you can reach me.
Yeah, and you're all over social media with your name, so you're pretty easy to find. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening. Now, if you heard something you like and you enjoyed this podcast, please share it and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And join us on Clubhouse on Thursdays at noon Eastern, where we'll be talking about these cases. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to call me 513-400-1691. Hey, Jim, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All
have
right.
a good one.
Bye-bye.